Welcome to Under the Hood.
I'm Dr. Alex DeGrotto, your pelvic floor physical therapist.
And I'm Dr. Rebecca Howard-Udy, your sex and relationship therapist.
Hi, everybody. Today we have a very special guest that we have been looking forward to having on for quite some time. And we'd love to welcome Megan Mountcastle. Megan is an independent licensed social worker who specializes in working with people whose lives have been disrupted by irritable bowel syndrome. And today we're hoping to cover the mental load of IBS, which anyone who suffers knows all about, the gut-brain connection, and then practical strategies for how to manage it. So thank you for joining us, Megan.
Thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited too.
How did you get into this? We have to know because we work with people that are dealing with this all the time, but it's not necessarily something that I immediately associate with therapy. So please share.
Yeah, I think over the years of doing this work in therapy, I worked at various agencies. I worked in hospital setting, and I started to notice how many of my clients over the years had GI problems in the background. I talk primarily about IBS, like that's kind of the language I use, but I would also say that I generalize it to a lot of GI issues. So people don't have to come in just saying I have IBS when I work with them. But yeah, it was sort of just a noticing over time that it often goes hand in hand with people really struggling with anxiety, depression, trauma. I think is a huge
Oh, yeah.
contingent in this in working with people with IBS. So I really noticed a need to fill kind of a niche. I think this niche is growing, or niche, however you want to say that word.
I always say niche, but I never knew how to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never know how to say it. I switch off. Um, so I really wanted to kind of fill that need because I saw people really suffering with GI problems. I was about to say like on the side, but it's a massive thing to
Yeah.
Oh,
suffer.
yeah. Takes over your day.
It takes over the day, and it wasn't
Mhm.
really being talked about a lot
I
because
agree.
it's a lot to attend to, when you're also worrying about anxiety and worrying and struggling.
Yeah,
So,
but it impacts every aspect of your life. I couldn't agree more. And so that's why when you suggested the mind-body connection,
Mhm.
it's
mhm,
perfect because in pelvic floor physical therapy, we're really dealing with the mechanics of it.
mhm.
What is happening in your colon? What is happening at the outlet? How are the muscles functioning? Are they overcompensating for excessive bowel movements? And or the opposite, so we deal with the mechanical aspect, but it's impossible to ignore how much this impacts someone's entire life and their personality.
Yes, totally. And I love connecting with other providers. I think working with GI and anything that's like the disorders of the gut brain axis, I think
Yes.
has to have that. I use the word holistic, I just mean multifaceted
Mm.
approach. I think what happens with the mental load of it, though, is it gets relegated to a discussion about stress. So that's
Mm.
the piece of it is like you can look online. There's so much information now. People can Google it or use AI now to look up what do I do for IBS, and
But it
it'll
can feel so
say
dismissive, right?
it's so
Like if you
dismissive.
oh, you're just stressed out and then oh, okay.
Yes, yes, and it's like that piece of the stress. It's too vague, or
Yeah.
I mean, IBS is inherently stressful.
Mhm.
So I think I was talking about the holistic approach, and I think having the pelvic floor and having the nutrition and having a wider discussion beyond stress, which is where I come
Mhm.
in talking about coping. Um, it's just so important to see it all. So I think
Yeah.
connecting with people like you is also very cool.
Oh, thank you, Megan. And Rebecca and I are very well versed in the mental load of IBS, but can you share a little bit more about the gut brain axis and the gut brain connection for listeners who are kind of learning about this? Because I do feel like sometimes people are even suffering in silence. Maybe they have gone to a GI or
Mhm.
they've gone to a colorectal, but a lot of times they haven't.
Mm.
Yes.
They're just living with it. So please maybe share your understanding of it or the way that you framework it.
Yes, totally. So I think you're absolutely right. Some people don't ever get a formal diagnosis of IBS. So I think when I work with somebody, I like to start at the beginning and help them understand how are they coming in self-diagnosing and just saying, I have GI? Have they been through a long process of that can take a long time to come to some sort of diagnosis?
Mhm.
Is it IBS or maybe it's something else? I think IBS is often exclusionary. So, they look at other things. They can't see something physically on the test, so it's functional. It's called a
Mhm.
functional disorder. Um, and so people come to me also needing some guidance on how to almost work with their care team. So
Yeah.
that's its
Mhm.
own stressor, I think, is what questions to ask and how do you know you have IBS?
Mhm.
Um, so that's one part of it, but also it's education about we're talking about the mental load and the gut brain axis, which is a huge topic. But I think so in IBS, there is this dysfunction in how the brain and the gut are communicating, like the
Right.
nerves, throughout your digestive system. They're misfiring or miscommunicating with how your brain is working. So laying that foundation and helping people understand what that actually is, that the
Totally.
connection is disrupted between your brain and your gut.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, and
that's
we call
really
the
what
gut
it
the second brain, right? And so it's
Yes,
our safety cues. So if the
it's our
safety
safety.
cues aren't there, yeah, that's
That's
right.
right.
Totally.
And there's a whole second like nervous system in your brain. I
Yeah.
think the nervous system is in my experience in this field, it's like having a new moment. I think people are talking more and more about the nervous system
Yeah, the vagus nerve
regarding
especially.
the vagus
There's
nerve.
all the
Totally.
TikTok reels about how to regulate
Yeah.
your vagus nerve. Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I think helping people understand that it's not also their fault. I think
Mhm.
people can feel dismissed in their sometimes that like, oh, it's just stress or it's all in your head. But it is and it isn't. Like, so it's not they're not creating this. They actually have a disorder of the brain gut axis. That is
Mhm.
a real mechanism, and also stress contributes to it. Um,
Mhm.
Trauma contributes to it. So when I work with people, I also show a diagram called the brain gut loop. And that's
Oh,
really a
cool.
foundation of how I work with people. So, for people in the therapy world, it's kind of a moderation, an adjustment from CBT. It's a little bit like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
It kind of draws from acceptance and commitment therapy, but it's really like um, you have a symptom or a sensation in your belly, or, in this case, it's often like a cramp, let's say.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then your attention is like immediately drawn to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is where it's a little CBT-ish, and then our thoughts start to assess, like, "Oh my god, what's
Oh my
happening?
Totally.
god,
Is this an
where's the
attack?
Yeah,
bathroom?
go
What's
down the
Where's the
gonna
rabbit hole.
happen?
bathroom?"
Mhm.
Yes.
Sure.
And then we
Yeah.
feel anxious, and then we
Yep.
might, like, leave a meeting suddenly.
Yes.
And then I think what happens over time is that proves every time I have a cramp, I have to leave my meeting.
Yes.
And that really keeps this brain gut loop active because
And it's a loop.
and
Yes.
it's a
So
loop.
anxiety ends up fueling,
That's right.
it goes faster and faster, sort of like almost like tornado.
This is
Totally.
reminding me so much of when Alyssa
Yes.
Demeule came on and she was talking about the endometriosis pain
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
how the pain, she would identify the pain and then she would
Sure.
cancel her plans and then it would be this. And so then her therapist was like, okay, we're going to stop once we recognize we're assessing the pain and
Yeah.
just pause right
Right.
there and just say, I'm
Boom.
going to,
Right.
wow.
Yeah.
So I know people who have IBS who, they cancel trips. They may, or not book trips. They
Right.
may feel like they're really housebound. They're not able to leave, or they're really anxious, like about doing anything. It
Mhm.
sort of takes over. It's like, oh, okay, I have to go do this thing, mapping out where the bathrooms are, mapping out, sort of pre-planning what's going to happen when. And
Yeah.
it's if, but I think in the emotional experience is not, "Oh, well, if I have to go to the bathroom, will there be one available? Yeah, sure, that's fine." That's
Mhm.
not the emotional experience. It's like, "Oh my gosh, when I have
Yeah,
to leave
right.
this meeting, and what am I gonna say, and how is this gonna go, and I'm gonna be on the trip,
Mm,
and it's gonna be terrible, and I'm gonna be in a porta potty somewhere, or God forbid, there's not one near." So it's the emotional experience, at least for folks that I know, is not is a very
Heightening.
heightened
Mm.
one. Is this what you see a lot, Megan?
Yes, I very much do. And I think it's part of the work is validating that those are
Mhm.
adaptive. Mapping out bathrooms is
Yes,
sometimes necessary.
totally.
It was really tricky to both validate and also we want to challenge it so that you can still go somewhere and have your needs met. Like if you need
Mhm.
a bathroom, there are most places. So
Mhm.
it's not having their
Mm.
world shrink. While also sometimes you have to plan to feel safe. You have to bring
Mhm.
Mm.
emergency rescue meds. You have to take care of yourself. It's super embarrassing stuff. I mean, who wants
Oh,
to,
yeah.
have it?
Yeah, well, that's the other piece, right? It's like, even if you can find a bathroom, is it private? Are your colleagues in the next
Yeah,
stop? Like,
Totally.
it's embarrassing. Yeah.
really embarrassing, and it can
Yeah.
feel gross and yucky, and who wants to
Mm.
go in a porta potty with an IBS
Oh,
attack? Like,
oh my gosh.
it's
Yes. No.
awful.
It's sort of dehumanizing, right? It just
Yeah.
feels so mortifying in
Well,
every
you
way.
can understand why it would be so anxiety.
Yeah,
You have one of those
totally.
Yeah.
somewhere, and
Yeah, and
everybody's
then
waiting for you outside of.
yes. This is
Yeah.
giving me so much
Like,
compassion for my patients because I do have a patient right now, they wanna go to Paris, he wants to take his wife to Paris, and I ended up showing him you can get it's like a rectal plug that will stop your fecal incontinence from happening
Mm.
because he wasn't going to go on the trip even though this episode of it has happened extremely rarely. I mean, maybe 3 times ever. But that's enough. 3 times
enough.
is 3 times too many.
Yes.
And so now that you're having this conversation and I'm listening to Megan, I'm realizing I actually could change my strategy, a little bit with him and or send him to you. But just to say, we're validating that that was traumatizing
Yes.
and we're trying to keep life going, which is sort of,
Mhm.
I was doing something very concrete to
Which
keep
is
life
helpful.
going.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
it sounds like maybe that loop is illuminating the loop is sort of the first step.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's important.
Yeah, I think the loop really underlies so much of this, and there's so
Mhm.
many parts of the loop that need support. I think,
Mhm.
I think this is where that multifaceted approach, because what you're doing with your patients is one super important piece. And
Mhm.
then it's so we can address all of it, the validation, and at the same time, it's a bit of a paradox, I think. And at the same time, let's get you out and living your life closer to what you want to be doing with the recognition that it makes sense that you might avoid some things sometimes because
Mm.
you don't wanna put yourself in these horrible experiences, but we want you to have a bigger life than you do now. We don't want your life to shrink so much. So
Mhm.
working on it from a practical aspect is really important. Working on it from this other mental load, is really important. Having physical relaxation, techniques is really important. I also like to talk about the toolbox because it's like over time, you can look at these different areas of when to rest and when to kind of like not push yourself and when to push yourself and what tools can you use in what particular moments. Sometimes you might not want to go to Paris
Yeah.
and that's okay. But if you never go to Paris, that also may be a problem too.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It sounds like what you're trying to do is to give people more choices, because when the anxiety starts, really that loop is really active, they're not really choosing, they're just getting spun along. Whereas, yeah, of course, the choice not to go to Paris if your health is not, if you're not in a good place, or, it's just the wrong time or whatever, that is a totally valid choice. But who's choosing? Is it
Yeah.
your gut that's choosing? Is it the anxiety that's choosing? I
Yes,
just
I
did
love that.
training recently with Lynn Lyons. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Oh, yes. Love
Isn't she
love her.
wonderful? Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a
Oh,
therapist,
cool.
an LICSW as well. She's based in New Hampshire, and
Okay.
she works with kids, and she does amazing anxiety work,
Mm.
and one of the things that I really relate to about her work is that she calls the anxiety the cult leader, which I
Love that.
think such a
Yeah,
powerful
totally. Makes
image.
sense. Mhm.
And so, with any kind of anxiety, the anxiety wants control and it wants certainty. And so, even more so when the anxiety has a physical symptom, like
Mhm.
the actual needing a bathroom, it's a tough one to argue with.
Mhm.
It's like,
Compelling.
so it's a compelling
Mm.
reason to
Yeah.
listen to the anxiety, which is, I think, is what a lot of people end up doing.
Mhm. Absolutely. I love that. I love the idea of choice, who's running the show. I wanna write that down, the piece from Lynn
Yeah.
Lyons. And I like the phrase, we are in charge, but not in control. And the
Yes.
difference between being in charge and being in control is one that I think about a lot. And
Yeah. It's that choice.
it's the choice.
Yeah. Do you work with kids at all?
I don't work with kids. I work
Yeah.
with young adults. I work with college students.
Mhm.
That's some of my favorite. That's a favorite group of mine because I think IBS shows up. Um, it can be just starting for some college students, and I
Yeah.
work with people who've gone off to college and are like now totally freaked out. The bathrooms are new, like they're
Yeah,
looking
very little privacy.
very
The
little
Oh, it's
first
what
year of
age.
college, oh,
there's so much material there for people with in college, or they're looking for the bathroom that's in, like, the basement of the library, to
Yes,
have some
right.
privacy. There's just so much,
Yeah.
and there's so much aloneness there with that age with, bathroom problems and being away for the first
Right.
time. So I do work with younger adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to be but now I'm in private practice and I work with couples, but I used to be a middle school guidance counselor.
Mm.
And one of the things actually that I saw a lot with school avoidance was GI issues with kids.
mm,
And typically their parents, because school avoidance is like, you know, they get them into therapy quick.
Mhm.
Like
mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
kiddo who's refusing to go to school, they get into therapy quick. And a lot of times if they do have, access to good anxiety care, they're able to sort of learn this loop and learn how to manage it. At least that's what I saw with a lot of
Yeah.
Thank
the
goodness.
students that I worked with. And then of course having like contingency plans and stuff in school, but sometimes those can really start to take over. But
Mhm.
it's interesting, when you have a kid who's struggling with this and provided that they have access to care and everything, they're probably this is not something that is going to go unnoticed. But
Right.
with an adult who has autonomy, who can say, "Oh, I can only work from home," or
Mhm.
I'm just not going to be able to travel." Like
Yeah, their
they
world could get small fast.
really small, really
Mhm.
fast, and they can just accept that that's what their limitation is. When it sounds like the work that you do, actually, you don't. Folks don't have to accept a limitation unless it's something that feels like the right choice for them.
Yes, I agree. You were making me think too of the kids in school, and I'm thinking of kids who can't poop at school. Um,
Mhm.
one is just an example, and I'm thinking how much that touches upon different parts of their life, like
Mhm.
feeling shamed, feeling bullied, or being bullied, or another kid walks by and is like, "That smells. What are you doing?" Like how embarrassing it can be to be a kid
Right.
pooping at school or then holding it or all of that. But I think this is another reason that therapy is such a beautiful and important addition to a that multifaceted approach, because now we're talking about social life for
Mhm.
kids and adults, but it's especially important with young kids in their social life, in their community at school. So there's so many in this IBS and GI, or even not dysfunction in GI, but this has its hands in so many parts of somebody's life because we're
Mhm.
creatures and we don't want to feel humiliated by having to go and have, you know, a bathroom emergency. And yet
Yeah.
we all do. We all do it. Like everybody's had that moment where we're like, I need the bathroom now. And this
Yes.
Yeah.
is embarrassing. Or I'm at somebody's house or I'm on vacation. I have to poop. This is the only place I can do it.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
a universal human thing.
This is the
Yes.
whole goal of our podcast, Megan, is just to normalize these things that
Yeah.
everyone experiences, but
Yeah.
people really don't talk about openly. And so I can't even tell you how often, I'm sure you experience this too. People come in and say, I'm sure I'm the only one. You
Mhm.
know, I can't imagine that you've ever heard this before. And it's like only every day for the last 16 years. But
Mhm.
yeah, okay, And so it's just kind of helping people realize this is actually a universal experience.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah, and I
So
think the
shame is a big thing. I mean, I'm sure this is like you're working with shame. This is your bread and butter
yes,
and
shame is
anxiety.
almost a daily conversation.
Yeah.
And even when we're not talking about it, it's always there. It's in the
Sure.
background, and I think the aloneness piece,
Mm,
Mhm.
um, which shame is just such that's a huge part of shame, is that you're carrying it alone, and what you said, Alex, like I'm the only one, is something that comes up, I think, in almost every intake session that I do, which is identifying like you're not alone. So
Yeah, even that is comforting. Like,
yeah,
"Oh, wow, other people have this too? Okay." So
yeah,
Mhm.
it's a little less scary.
Mhm.
mhm, yes.
So somebody comes to see you and it sounds like one of the things that you do is you really talk about this cycle, the CBT informed anxiety. What do you call it?
I call
What
it the brain gut loop.
Yeah.
brain gut loop.
Yes.
Okay, so once people understand the brain gut loop, this is really key to the work that you're doing with folks.
Hmm.
So what else do you do? What would be the next thing? Say Alex's patients is coming and
Yeah.
says, I want to go to Paris. I don't think it's ever gonna happen, but like what the hell? I've tried everything else. Maybe therapy can help.
Yeah. So I work with people in a couple of ways. One is um, I do have like a 12 session program, and I call it
Mhm.
Calm Gut, Calm Mind.
Yes.
Um, and that's more skills based. So somebody who the IBS is their primary, like somebody who comes in this example and says, IBS is really the main problem. I want to get to Paris. Um, it's a lot of psychoeducation and skills based work to help build up a toolbox that they can um, feel more in charge essentially of the IBS, and the IBS isn't running the show. Another way that I like to say that is some of this is about changing your relationship to symptoms. So the work that we would do, yes, it can literally reduce symptoms, but I think one thing about IBS is that um you can't um I have like a phrase that now is like leaving my mind, but I'm blanking on what I was gonna say.
That's okay.
That's
We
okay.
can delete that.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. No, but, I think I really wanted to think of what I was gonna say about that.
So you said it really can actually reduce symptoms,
But even if it
It
but
can
doesn't,
even
you're
if it
changing.
doesn't, it changes the relationship.
thank you, yes.
Yeah.
No, you can't force your gut to behave. That was the line.
Yes. Oh,
Just
yeah.
this one line that I really like. You can't
Yes.
force your gut to
Okay.
behave. You can
It
support
literally
it.
has a mind of its own.
It
Yeah, it
does.
actually
It
does.
really
Yeah.
does. It
Yeah.
has a mind of its own. You can't force it to behave, but you can support it. Um,
Okay.
so in the skills-based work, we work on what skills can help, using things like the brain gut loop, talking about our boundaries, like how to have self-care. We talk about understanding their nervous system and different states that they're in. A lot of people really respond well to having some actual relaxation tools.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily meet everybody with a list of relaxation tools. I think that can feel a little bit um almost a little dismissive because
Mhm.
I don't think that the problem often is a lack of information for people.
Yes.
So that's one way. It's like very skills based.
Yeah.
I was just imagining they've had a lot of time to Google.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
Well,
totally.
that's what
yeah, they're
people
spending lots of
I
time with
I
the phone in their hand being like, "What
exactly.
is going on? How do
I
I
Yeah.
fix it?"
know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yes.
yes, this is a
You
little
really
side
want them
note.
to have sorry, go ahead.
Good. I was
Mhm.
just going to say a lot of times the people that I know with IBS are often very diligent and they are very, they do their research.
Mhm.
They're well, they know things. It's not a lack of information. They know
Right.
Yeah.
what IBS is. They've done it all the research, but they need help with the mental and emotional pain of living with it and also
Mhm.
implementing strategies.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot of what you do is actually like exposure therapy. So folks
Mhm.
come with a lot of information. Of course
Mhm.
they do, because they are diligent and they are
Smart.
smart and they love certainty and they want to find a solution.
Yeah.
Um, but what you're really trying to do is to help people have a different lived experience.
Ab-
Even if their symptoms aren't changing, which
Yet.
may or
Yep.
may not happen, but if they have a different emotional experience of
Mhm.
what it's like to experience the symptoms,
yes.
then that can be very transformative. even if the symptoms don't change at all, is I think what I'm
Absolutely.
hearing. Okay.
Absolutely. And then what's ironic about that a little bit is that that transformation actually can then literally reduce the symptoms.
Of course.
But it's yeah, but I don't often want people to come in and have me say, "Oh, we're not going to work on reducing your symptoms."
No, of course not. That would
Because
be
that would be like, well, then why would I come in? I want to reduce my
of
symptoms.
course. Of course. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so it's both. We have to think about it. That's why this is also a little bit of a paradox, which is stop like not thinking about controlling your symptoms anymore actually helps to control your symptoms.
Mhm.
Totally. Back in the day, we used to do pain journals, like extensive pain journals, and we would map the pain and we would have all these. And then neuroplastic pain and pain science taught us that the more attention we pay to it, the more we'll notice it. And so
Mhm.
now it's completely turned on its head, because it's like, okay, yes, hello, old friend, you're there. I'm
Mm.
just going to let you be. And, you burned some toast, but all the fire alarms are going off. It doesn't mean the house is burning down,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like, I'm safe. I'm okay. I see you. I'm just going to let it be.
Mhm.
And it's just so different than what we used to do as physical therapists, but it sounds a lot like what you're saying for people with IBS. It makes so much sense.
Mhm. Yeah, you just mentioned the word attention, and I think that's such an important word. And I literally made that the first part of the brain gut loop, which is the sensation happens and then it takes over your attention.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When we were doing the constipation episode, I said it becomes people's entire personality. And I was doing it a little tongue in cheek and not to make fun, but because it's all you can think and talk and ruminate about when you're
Mhm.
feeling, yuck. And that's all you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's all you think
All you
about
think
and you
about.
don't say
You
anything
can't.
because
Totally.
you're alone. You
Yeah.
feel alone.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you were asking about how I might work with somebody, and the other way is that some people will come in saying, I want to work on IBS. And then they might not actually need all the skills so that, I mentioned the 12 sessions and it's skills based. Some people really are coming in saying IBS, and then these other things are happening around it, like
Mhm.
I just lost my mom, or
Mm.
I've had anxiety since I was little. And then I think then it's about like what floats to the top.
Mhm.
What takes precedence. So sometimes we might actually leave IBS in on the back burner. And
Mhm.
then, but so that's another part of my practice is it's not always like meeting them with all these skills and a framework, though that's very helpful. And we do some of that. Sometimes it's also, it's these other things that are keeping the IBS active, which is maybe grief or maybe something
Mhm.
else happening.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
think what's fascinating too is that more recently, I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, I think there's much more acknowledgement that childhood trauma or like adverse experiences in childhood can actually contribute to somebody with GI or the disorder of the gut brain axis. And I think
Mhm.
they're still figuring out what exactly is that mechanism, but I hadn't seen that. I've started seeing that more recently in the literature itself, and I think that's very cool because I think that's so important to acknowledge that.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it makes a lot of sense that that would be the case because we're talking about safety cues this whole time,
Mhm. Uh-huh.
and it's really the gut determining how safe we are and whether or not we can appropriately digest our food, essentially.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Mhm.
Wow, Megan, this is so much to take in. Is there anything we missed?
I think we got all of our questions, but I'm wondering what else, Megan, you think that we should know or that listeners should know?
Yeah, people who are truly suffering.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is that the goal of the goal isn't perfect symptom control.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways perhaps is that it's when people come in for therapy, I think sometimes they come in with a totally understandable goal of, I want to stop this from happening. And of
Mhm.
course they do. Of course, because it feels terrible. Um, but then the more that we talk about controlling symptoms, that we become stuck in that loop. So
Right.
Yeah.
I think getting away from ideas of I can do this perfectly, or if I could just do the FODMAP right, um, or if I could, eliminate all trigger foods, or if I could just manage my stress right, then finally I'll have a time when this just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
But we have to be realistic, and the body that people live in sometimes is just going to flare, and that's not their fault. I think
Mhm.
that's another important idea that I work with people on, is getting away from that. Someday this could be solved. So I think then we're having a little bit of an acceptance conversation.
Yeah.
And also then not waiting to live your life.
Mhm.
Because I do find that a lot in the clinic. People are just waiting. They're waiting to do the big thing, or they're waiting indefinitely to
Yes.
go back to school. I have someone right now, waiting until they feel that they are in the right spot to do that. And it's like, actually, how about we figure out a way to be able to continue to live in the world
Mhm.
with management strategies?
Mhm.
Yes. Absolutely. And I
Yeah, and maybe you do adapt. Excuse me, maybe you do have some adaptations. Maybe you do take more rest breaks than other people, and maybe you do have a little scheduled nap in the middle of the day or whatever it is, but
Yeah.
it allows you to actually continue to live.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yes.
Yeah, I can see how that's such a big piece of the treatment for the anxiety, because if you're measuring your success by not having any
like
symptoms,
all or nothing.
it would be like measuring your success in anxiety treatment by not having any anxiety. And there
Mhm.
may be periods of time where you feel less anxiety, but it's a natural thing to feel in the same way that these
Right.
symptoms, if it's part of the way that your body processes
Mhm.
information, anxiety, food, stress, whatever the case may be, if you're measuring it by how many symptoms, what kind of a flare up you're having, then that is a tricky place to live in
Mhm.
because of course, if you're having more symptoms, your nervous system is going to be saying, oh no, something's wrong, you're not doing something right." And then you're in that loop again.
Blame cycle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how that would be, well, hard on the front end in terms of the acceptance because people don't wanna accept that. It could
Mhm.
take a while to get to that place, but I could see how in terms of a management strategy and getting control of that loop,
Mhm.
it's such a disruptor to say, "Oh, here we are. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
gonna last forever.
Hmm.
Don't have to like it, but alright."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Megan. This has been really illuminating, and I
Yeah, we
I
really
feel like
appreciate
I
it.
I have a lot of strategies for even some of the folks I'm working with now. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the one last thought that I just had is that we didn't actually spend a lot of time talking about um actual things to do.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
Because I think in my conversations with people, I find it less helpful to go through and say, mm, you know, eat this, not that. I mean, that's not necessarily my domain, but like, get more sleep,
Mhm.
more water. I think that doesn't tend to be the most fruitful conversation for IBS. It's not the lack of a checklist of what to
Yeah.
do and not do. It's this other stuff that keeps the IBS alive, which is the brain gut loop. Um, Not to say that consulting with somebody about food isn't important, not to say that self care isn't important, but our conversation didn't really reflect a checklist or
Yeah.
tips and tricks.
Sure. Well, I if a checklist would do the trick, it may be something that can support,
Hmm.
um, but if that's all it was, then it wouldn't be such a tricky problem that so many people struggle with.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see, that makes a lot of sense. So,
Yeah.
Megan, how can people find you? Where do people find you if they're interested in learning more?
Yes. So my website, it's my name, meganmountcastle.com, is a great way to get information. I also sometimes do webinars and educational events, and those are all listed on my website. I have a contact form on there if anybody wants to reach out and connect about what I do. It's all there.
Great.
Thank you so
And
much.
I have just one last question in
Yes.
terms of access. What states can you tell us what states you're licensed in? And
Yeah.
then what about that program? Is that something that people could do even if they're out of state?
So no, that is considered a therapy program.
Okay.
I'm licensed in Massachusetts and Connecticut.
Mhm.
So anybody from either of those states can reach out for therapy. Although anybody out of state can do any webinars or that sort of thing that I offer.
Sure.
But yes, information on that Calm Gut, Calm Mind Therapy program is on my website. Um, yeah, and I also offer consultation. That's another piece is consultation with providers, therapists, medical doctors who want to understand more about the brain gut loop.
So
Oh,
cool.
that's so great. Thank you so much for your time, Megan. We really
Thanks so
appreciate it.
much
Thank you.
for
Thanks.
having me.
Thank you for listening to Under the Hood. If you liked this episode, please take a minute and leave us a review. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for future episodes, please let us know.